spent almost 3 weeks in the Mani region of Greece, which is where the novel is set. And it's a really particular landscape. It's sublime in the real sense of the word. And while I was there, I had almost a sense that the landscape was waiting for a character. There had recently been a series of fires inland. The entire landscape was scorched. And it was really an extraordinary, almost lunar quality to it. There was almost no vegetation. It had these kind of ripples, and there was a lot of ash, and the soil was completely black. But in the middle of that, you would sometimes have these new growths, which almost had a nuclear quality. They were incredibly bright flowers sprouting out of this ash. And then I always remember some extraordinary cacti that had almost melted like that. So they were like plants from a Dali painting or something. It just, the entire landscape had melted, and it had a really strange and eerie quality, and that was something that I thought would be useful for the books. As a piece of fiction, the landscape is really working as a backdrop that in some way expresses the emotions of the central character. She has this sense of alienation. She has this sense of not quite knowing what her position in the world is. So her identity is unclear. And I think that sense of being adrift, of being distant from your own self, somehow that landscape was useful for me as a writer in trying to communicate that for the character. It's a tradition that exists around the world where men, but more often women, are paid in order to issue laments at funerals. And so the idea is that you give somebody money in order to grieve on your behalf. And this was something that is kind of a central theme in the book, which is so much about emotions that you're not able to express directly. So the narrator, one of her problems in a way is that she's not able to express her own grief. So the weepers kind of end up being quite important to the book, because of how they relate to the theme of grief, but also I think because it's a question of how you create work and what kind of artistry or fiction itself means, which is it is all artificial, but you are hoping to create some kind of genuine feeling out of that artifice. So in that sense, the weepers are also a useful way to think about how fiction is generated. When I started working on the book, one thing I was really interested in was trying to create tension within a book without relying on plot mechanics. So in that sense, I wanted to try to create a book where the narrative tension followed from internal shifts within the central characters. One inspiration for me were films by directors like Chabrol or Antonioni, where you have the kind of atmosphere of a mystery, but in a way solving the mystery isn't the most important thing. I actually came to writing pretty late. I think I wrote my first novel that I published in the United States was the first piece of fiction I wrote, and I wrote that in my late 20s. So quite late. Before that, I was working in the art world, contemporary art, and to a certain extent in film and documentary film. And that was really, in a way, my education in terms of writing fiction. So a lot of the ways I try to think about fiction, I think, have some of the techniques that are used in contemporary art or indeed in film.